Well, we're entering into a new project of the 36 Chevy pickup, and it's gauge restoration. And I didn't really bring you along to show you how I did it, but there is the speedometer. It's like the needle had fallen off. It was laying in the bottom. So we pulled it all apart and I cleaned it up, and it was pretty rusty. You can see the remains of the rust on it there, but anyway, turned out pretty good. The face was okay. I don't know if I can get close enough there. You can see a couple dots of cream colored paint that I put on it. I'll show you the one that I used these stickers on. I purchased these years ago to replace the faces of these, but they're not exactly like the originals. This, if you look at it real close there, says safety first right under the 50. Well, this one is nothing there, so it's not completely original. Plus, where those little screws are at, see, my needle isn't going all the way down. That bothers me. There's little screws right there. Well, I suppose you could take those out and put the stickers on and then be able to make it work. I don't know why that needle's not going back down. I played with that. If you bang on it a little bit, I don't know what the deal is. It'll go back down to 0. We'll see what it does when I get it back in the truck. This is one that I have to redo. The top part of it was where the fuel gauge goes, and this was where the temperature gauge goes. Well, both of those gauges are bad. I twisted the stud off of the fuel gauge, which made it inoperable. I did find one on eBay, a used one, so I purchased it, and so I'm going to use that. It's got the casing with it, and the fuel gauge, and a temp gauge, but the temp gauge, it's broken. So I'm going to play with that to see if I can make it work. Did some reading on a couple web pages telling you how to make a temperature gauge work. They are filled with ether. The little tube that comes off the back of that gauge here, I can show you better than tell you. And what happens over the years is that ether, it gets a hole, a crack in the line, and then it leaks out. So there is what I'm talking about. This is the little part that goes into the engine, but you see this little capillary tube? It's copper, but it's kind of fragile, and it goes right onto the back of this gauge, and there's my gauge, and you can see where it fastens. I'm going to get this thing to focus. You can see how that fastens right onto the back. Well, what they're saying is to be able to buy some new copper line, you know, because you don't know where the crack is at or where it's leaking. And then you kind of splice it onto the line. You know, you leave maybe an inch or two of line, and then you cut this, and you put a little sleeve in there, sweat it on, and then you stick the tubing in it and sweat that together, and then bring it down, and you have to do the same thing on this end with this little gizmo here. So I'm going to try it and see. I believe I can get one Jim Carter trucks and be able to go that route. That's rebuilt. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I can buy some of that copper tube for about $10. And like I said, I needed to get a fuel gauge. And so I won this eBay bid of $36 for both gauges. This is your fuel gauge, you can see. And the problem with this thing is that, see, I broke one of the studs off right there and twisted it off. Tried to solder it back, but it was just hopeless. So I thought, I can get this for $36, and I'll just leave it in the case, that, you know, the backing of the gauge. And then what we'll do is we'll get the temp gauge. Either I'll buy one refurbished. This is what I'm talking about. We'll leave it in this so I don't have to risk the possibility of twisting one of those studs off again, just taking it out and putting in this one. There's no difference, you know, they're the same. So, but anyway, we'll do that and we'll get it going. This is the face of it. I just started. I thought, well, I'll put a little video up to show what I'm doing here. I have a wire wheel that I have on my grinder over here, and it is a brass coated wire wheel. And it's pretty nice because it's not very harsh. And I purchased this from Harbor Freight. Here, let me see if I can dig it out of the trash, the box. But you can see it with all the junk on it. A 6-inch brass coated wire wheel. So it's not a brass wire wheel, it's brass coated. That's why it's got this gold color to it. But I found it very gentle. I mean, it does not scratch up your metal really to speak of much at all. So what I've got to do is take that paint off. The problem is this little black arrow in the middle. And I like to keep that. And so what I did over here, this is the one that I've gotten done. This is the amp. I'm waiting for, there's a gasket that goes in here around this glass. So I have not put this one completely together yet. But here you can see the gauge is restored. The amp gauge I purchased on eBay. It's a new old stock. Now you see the difference in the brown, and you can see those little nipples sticking up there. That's what I'm talking about with these decals. I put one of those on. I should have left it alone. It had just a smidgen of rust in it, and I thought, well, I'll put these decals on and it'll be good as new. Well, no. So if I was restoring gauges, and I mean, unless your gauges are totally rusted up, it's like, just stick with what you got. Get a little bit of cream color. I'll show you the paint I get. Just some Rust-Oleum, and it is called Antique White 7794, and that pretty much matches. You can take a look at these. Of course, it probably doesn't do it justice on the camera. Obviously, this is a little bit brighter because this is 85 years old. But I took and traced paper over this. And then I had some black letter stickers, and I put the tracing down on that and drew around it and cut it out very carefully with the scissors and put it on, and it's fair. You can see the edges are not real sharp, and it's not near as skinny and nice as that one, but there's no way I'm going to be able to paint that on there, so it works. I thought that'd bring you along, and that's what we're doing. We're just in the process of putting these gauges together, and so once we get them all done, I'll bring you back and take a look at it. But I did get this one done, and it turned out nice, except for that stupid needle ain't going down. I don't know if I can turn it. Whatever, we'll get her fixed. This is the original light switch. I'm going to take a look at it and see if I can make it work. I doubt it. Dimmer switch, which I'm just going to buy a different one. I can even fart around with that. This is a little fuse holder for your amp gauge. It goes on the back of your amp gauge here and one of those terminals, and it just regulates your you know, juice coming in so that you don't get too much juice to that, burn it up, I guess. But anyway, and this is kind of flimsy too, so we'll see. I have seen these in aftermarket situations. You see what the problem is. They got a little cap on this one. It's a brass cap. This one, the brass cap is missing. It snapped off. So we'll see what we can do. Anyway, that's where we're at. Got this thing all cleaned up. I'm going to have to paint the outside of it though. This goes right on the firewall. This is where your choke and throttle cable come through, and then your water temperature line and your oil pressure line come through that. It's on the, like I said, that's on the firewall, and it goes up in behind your dash and fastens on the gauges. So that's where we're at. We got a lot of junk on the bench here, but the truck is coming along. I've got her tore apart, and it's just getting ready to sandblast a lot of things. This is part of the wood that was behind the dash, and that sets down in here. It goes the other way, like this, behind your dashboard. And it's kind of unique. That's the way it was made. But you can see the ends are all rotted off there. And this one's pretty well chewed up too. And there is nothing for that wood to fasten into up in here. So what we're going to do is I bought some steel angle iron. I got 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And we're going to run that from about here across the base of this thing all across over to here, and we'll have to try to bend it some way. I might just have to slice it in a few spots and bend it to get it to fit, because you've got L brackets that go on the end of that piece of wood. Get them out of here. These need sandblasted too. These go up in here like this, and then you can see, I got it backwards. This goes over here on this side. Goes in there like that, and you can see how this bolts into your dashboard. And so I figured if I put a piece of angle iron underneath this, and yeah, we've got enough room there. I can put that underneath there, and then that'll support this wood. I'll just leave the wood in there, and it'll give something for this to bolt onto and make it very secure. And then this thing, if you see the side's got 2 bolts. That's where it fastens into. Now, it's so dark inside here. Sounds like I'm in a drum. Echoes. There they are. See the holes there? That's where that L bracket bolts onto on each side. And those pieces will be replaced too. That length there. I'm going to put in new pieces. And what I'm projecting on doing is, you can see this side here. Someone has really goobered that up when they put it in. They just cut it with a torch. But I'm going to get a 2x2 angle, and we're going to put in there, and we're going to run it from the base, pull that out, run that all the way up, and it's going to go up into these holes right here, up behind those holes. And then I will put bolts or screws or whatever in through those to hold that whole structure in place. I'm going to do that on each side, and that way this will be very solid. This whole thing is going to be very solid, and both sides will be done with that. And then with that piece of wood and the metal underneath it, tie in the sides, and yeah, we'll be good to go. So we've got to take off the back panels here, and there's one that goes up around the window, down the sides, there in the corner, and here in the corner. We'll pull those off. Those will be sandblasted. And yeah, I'm in a dilemma still figuring out how I'm going to get the inside and all the rest of it sandblasted, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. So anyway, I'm rambling, sorry. I get talking about this truck and I just lose track of time. So thank you all for watching and subscribing. Another sandblasting project. And of course the doors, they're laying down underneath. Isn't this nice? That wasn't me that did that. Somebody owned it before me, tried to fix the rust problem there. At least they used aluminum. So anyway, thanks for watching and subscribing, and we will bring you back when we get more things accomplished. And finally, I forgot to show how I remedied the crack around here. On one of my other videos, I mentioned that the top and the bottom of this cab were put together at the factory. And what they did is they fastened them on here. All they had was solder that ran across here. And it ran up into here. So what I did is I melted out the solder, got it all out of there, and then I put a come-along strap on up in one of these holes and tied it down onto that bracket there. And I pulled the whole cab down until those cracks were pretty close and everything was matched up. Cleaned it all up with the grinder or the wheel, and then we welded it, and that is solid now, so that's not moving. The other side kind of goofed it up a little bit and was burning through because I had the amps up too high on the welder, and so I had to cut it out a piece and I welded it in there. But it turned out okay. I will have to throw a little bit of body filler over that to smooth it out, but anyway, both sides are taken care of. I just thought I'd show you that before in this video. All right, thanks for watching.